compliance with Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, entitled Open Public Meetings Act. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided as specified in the Act. Proper notice of this public meeting was provided in the notices of March 26, 2012. Said notice was posted at the entrance of the Board of Education offices, mailed to the Nutley Sun, the Star Ledger, the North Jersey Herald News, and the Nutley Journal. Mailed to the Nutley Township Clerk, advertised in the Nutley Sun on April 5, 2012, posted on the 8th District website. This is an official meeting. I ask everyone to stand for a moment of silence for the victims, family, and those who are affected by the shooting in Connecticut last Friday. For the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Dancheck-Martin. Here. Mrs. Flynn. Here. Mrs. Kaczynski.
Here.
Dr. Reed.
Here.
Mrs. Russo.
Here.
Mrs. Solera.
Here.
Ms. Sherman.
Here.
Mr. Sposato.
Here.
Mr. Costa.
Here. Approval of minutes. I'd ask a motion to approve the minutes as distributed.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Minutes are approved as distributed. Tonight's agenda, we'll have an audit report from Mr. Vinci. We'll have that report, and then we'll be going into closed session for approximately an hour to discuss legal matters, and then we'll come back for the rest of the meeting. Mr. Vinci.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening to everybody. If the board has a copy of their CAFR, there are two reports we submitted to the board. The Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, which is the bigger document. If you want to look at page 56, I can highlight the financial condition of the district. Keep in mind the state a few years ago determined the amount of surplus districts were allowed to maintain. And if everybody has that page, if not, I can walk through the dollar amounts. Your year end is June 30th. The district at June 30th, 2012 ended the year with a total surplus of just about $3,450,000, which is over $1 million more than the prior year. The reason why the increase is that the board was able to save money in really two budget accounts, which generated that increase in surplus. One was with tuition, and the other dealt with the maintenance of the school facilities. I think those two areas alone increased the bottom line about $800,000. But keep in mind, the state does allow you to create reserves. The board did have a capital reserve, which was built into that surplus at year end of about $124,000. The state, with their state formula, as I mentioned before, limits the amount of surplus. Anytime you go above a certain threshold, you create excess surplus. Based on this audit, we determined that your excess surplus is just over $1.6 million, which means that when you do have excess surplus, you have to appropriate or fund that in a future year's budget. So the $1.6 million, the board would be required to use your cash resources to balance the 13-14 budget. That amount of money is, you have excess surplus the prior year, but you're about $1.4 million higher. What I would just caution the board, since there was a significant increase that in 13-14's budget development, that you utilize those increased monies for one-time expenses. Because the excess surplus levels fluctuates by year, and it varies by the dollar amount of your expenditures. So the unassigned surplus that the board had, which is your 2% threshold, is just under $1.1 million. That's basically 2% of your expenditures. So the financial condition of the district is very healthy, increased considerably over the year. The smaller report is a auditor's management report, which summarized recommendations that we had as part of our testing, and none of the recommendations that we had were material or significant in nature. The first recommendation dealt with the fact that the board still has an outstanding receivable from the County of Essex, and I think that dealt with the Ratcliffe vertical lift. It was a $40,000 grant. The board did expend the monies, but the receivable has been outstanding for a few years. If the receivable is not collectible, then I would recommend to the board that they fund that through a capital reserve appropriation through their budget. Again, that could be in the 13-14 year. The second recommendation dealt with the internal budget accounting reports. As part of our testing, we just noticed that there were certain accounts that did not agree with the adopted budget that we submitted to the county. So it's a matter of just reconciling the original budget to your internal accounting records. Again, not many accounts were out of balance, but we did notice that there were a handful. The third recommendation dealt with the cafeteria. We just noticed with the elementary point of sale reports that they were not in agreement with the daily deposits. We've been talking with the business administrator about setting up a meeting so that the food service management company is aware of the information and how we do our testing, and if there are differences, how they should be reconciling those internal reports. And the fourth recommendation dealt with the application for state school aid. We just noticed that there were differences between the number of students reported versus the number of students that you had either in your registers or on free and reduced milk applications. Again, none of the recommendations are significant. I think the business office should be commended for the fact that the rest of the audit was very clean. Questions from the board?
Of that surplus that you said for next year, how much of that can go into capital reserve, or none of that can go into capital reserve?
No, what you can do as part of the board action, every June, the board is actually allowed to supplement a capital reserve by resolution. The maximum amount that you're allowed to fund would be equal to what's in your long-range facility plan. So I would tend to think your plan allows significant dollars to be funded. So you can use all of that part of it. You can actually fund that reserve in June 2013 also.
So the whole thing could go depending on what our capital reserve plan looks like.
Yes, and you could also fund, there are two other reserves. You can fund an emergency reserve as well as a maintenance reserve. Now, the state does allow districts to fund for those reserves for future needs.
Do we have an emergency?
I think the business administrators will address this later in their comments as to the surplus and some of the things that are going
Okay, can I just ask one last question? So that, of that amount, right, because you increased the budget 2%, that's by the tax rolls. So this would be, we could actually include this as a one-time and still do the 2% on the rest of the budget?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Not, thank you very much for
Okay,
your report.
thany you. Happy holidays to all and happy and healthy New Year.
To you, and accommodation for the business office. Whereas the Board of Education will be discussing matters exempt from public discussion pursuant to NJSA 10:4-12. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Education recess to closed executive session at this time to discuss personnel and legal update on the TriTech and DCN matters. Be it further resolved that the results of the discussion will be made public by inclusion on the agenda of the subsequent meeting of the Board of Education, or where the reasons for discussing such matters in closed session no longer exist. I so move. All those in favor? As I stated earlier, and as the agenda says, would be approximately 60 minutes in closed session. All in favor? Aye. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Stanchek, here. Ms. Flynn? Here. Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes, here.
Dr. Reed? Here. Mrs. Russo? Here. Mrs. Scalera?
Here.
Ms. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Sposado?
Here.
Mr. Kota?
Here. We have the student report from Ms. Abdul-Hadi.
Good evening. As the school year goes on, many events and activities have taken place while Nutley High School students continue to get involved and reach out in our school community. As the cold weather rapidly approaches, the winter sports teams have come back in action. The Nutley High School varsity girls basketball team kicked off their season with their first home opener on December 14th. The boys team had their first game on December 4th and will be having their first home game on December 20th. The boys ice hockey team had their first game on December 1st, and the boys wrestling team started their season with their first tournament, which was held on December 15th. The girls and boys bowling team had their first match against Montclair on December 7th. The winter track team will be attending their first meet at Drew University on December 20th. As the holidays are quickly approaching, Nutley High School has been very active by spreading the holiday cheer, not only in our school, but across the state as well. On December 7th, Student Council hosted their annual Toys for Tots party, which was a huge success. Over 150 toys were raised by both Student Council and Key Club members, which will be donated to Union Beach and Manasquan, two towns that were severely damaged by Hurricane Sandy. Student Council has also collected a surplus of clothing, cleaning products, household goods, and non-perishable foods for several towns affected by Hurricane Sandy as well. The NHS Music Department hosted their holiday extravaganza on December 7th through December 9th. They also held their annual Yuletide concert on December 13th. The NHS Choir and NHS Brass Ensemble will be hosting a choir holiday benefit concert on December 19th at 7:30 p.m. at St. Mary's Church. All proceeds will benefit the Music Program Scholarship Fund. The Interact Club is conducting a winter clothing collection to benefit the homeless and the Nutley Family Service Bureau's thrift shops. Members of the club have been visiting our homerooms asking for clean, gently used winter clothing. This collection will be ending on December 20th. The Future Educators of America have started their annual food drive on December 3rd and it will be ending on December 19th. All of the items will be donated to the Red Cross. The Young Conservative Club has also been collecting supplies for our troops. Students are asked to donate toiletries and non-perishable foods, which will be sent to our troops stationed overseas. An athletic shoe collection has also taken place as students of NHS were asked to donate gently used athletic shoes to benefit the Perpetual Prosperity Comes Foundation. In academic news, progress reports were recently sent out through the parent and student portals. This program makes accessing grades easier for both the students and parents. The Guidance Department Instant Decision Day was held on November 29th. Seniors had the opportunity to apply to 11 colleges and universities. Many seniors also had the opportunity to receive scholarship money. The National Honor Society held their fall induction for seniors that did not necessarily meet the community service requirements as of last year. 7 seniors have been recently inducted. The schedule for midterm examinations was also sent out to students and parents. Midterms will be held at Nutley High School from Tuesday, January 22nd through Friday, January 25th. Only four-year courses will be given midterm examinations. Overall, the students and faculty have been very active in events and activities throughout Nutley High School. As the new year approaches, we hope to continue to strive forward and are eager for more exciting events to arrive.
Thank you very much. You're welcome to stay as long as you want with the meeting, as short as you want. Then you have schoolwork. Superintendent's report.
Mr. President. Hello. I do apologize ahead of time for the length. A lot has transpired since our last board meeting. I want to make sure that we get everything on record. First and foremost, there were questions at the last board meeting regarding the academic calendar. I know as we get midway through the year, I can't believe we're already there, but the public has an extreme interest in the end of the year as far as scheduling. There have been many questions regarding the end of the school year, especially given Sandy. We were forced to close for a full 5 days. However, with the cooperation of our faculty, staff, certainly the Board of Education, and the community, we were able to recapture 3 of those days the following week. I want to point out to the public again that as we build our academic calendars, we build in 4 emergency closing days. As last year, and with every year moving forward, this included, in order to maximize meaningful instructional time, we hold those days until the very end of the year, and if they're not used, we give them back, taking them off at the end of the year instructionally. In order to make clear the end of the year because of this, like last year, we are providing on our website the chart that you see up on the screen. It is exactly the same as the chart we've had in the past, and I just wanted to go over it again so it's clear. The chart includes a series of columns, each detailing specific dates depending on how many emergency closing days we are forced to use. Currently, we've used 2 days, and as you can see from the chart, the 2 columns all the way to the right have already been grayed out because we've had to give back 2 of those days. The column that is in green details for anyone where we currently are based on the progress of the academic calendar. So as of now, we had to close for 5 days. We reopened for 3 that had been previously unaccounted for. The board approved the change in calendar, and therefore we are currently down 2 of our emergency closing days. Thereby, as you see from the chart, the adjusted last day for students would be Tuesday, June 25th, if all things remain constant where they are now. What I want the public to understand is that as we have to close, or should we have to close, this will be updated so that at any point in time they can go to the same point, go to the same spot on the website, and find accurate information about the end of the school. Again, there were questions about it. My hope is that as we see it year after year, it will just become second nature, and everyone will know exactly where to look and how to read and understand. Just as a reminder, we did open for Election Day, which was previously a closed day, as well as the 2 days for Teachers Convention, and again, thank you to the association. Moving forward, we're looking to approve calendars more than a year in advance in March on the board agenda. On our agenda tonight, there is the academic calendar for 13-14. I do want to make clear to the public again that with the approval of the board, all these calendars are subject to change based on conversations with the association and more readily dates that are issued from the state of New Jersey when it comes to testing and the rest. We try and set the calendar as best as we can, and then we have to kind of play catch up when they change the dates. But one of the things we've been trying to do is make sure we're ahead of the game and that we're approving these things early so it's easier for people to make plans. Finally, one thing that I would like to point out that Mr. Williams, in one of his first acts as principal of high school, delivered to me a proposal to move graduation earlier in the day based on the issues that we have been having. It's gone through a number of committees, but it's something we want to revisit because if it's something the board is going to pursue, we want to start advertising that in January. And so we want to make sure it goes back through our committees for January and can be back in front of the board by the 22nd. Okay? Switching gears from the calendar, moving to academics. As we continue to work toward our strategic plan, there is a great deal going on in the district that I certainly want to highlight. A lot of great work going on with our professionals, volunteers, and the rest. I'm going to start with our math pilot. Ms. Martin is here. We kicked off our search for an updated math program, I'm happy to say, with a meeting that included teachers and administrators from all levels, as well as parents and certainly members of the Board of Education. The group reviewed a number of current systems and are meeting again following the break, I believe on the 3rd, to complete their review of a second group of systems. From these, they will select 2 to pilot in classrooms, which will begin promptly and continue through the spring. The goal is that the group will follow a specific process which we have outlined, including specific methods for documenting the strengths and weaknesses of the 2 systems. We can get the group back together for a conversation based on evidence. The district will then work with the chosen vendor to obtain the materials and establish a meaningful training plan, which is key for both the summer and the fall, to ensure that our teachers are prepared to effectively implement the selected system in support of our new curriculum. Again, all this work, and it is a lot of work, represents our commitment to multiple components of our strategic plan. Sticking with math, I want to thank, and she's here, Mrs. Corolla, about there she is, Ms. Milani and Ms. Martin again. Together they ran a meeting with parents again across school last Thursday. I know Ms. Danchek-Martin was present. The substance of the meeting was to detail plans to shift the organization of our grade 6 classes in order to allow for stronger implementation of our new math curriculum. They answered parent questions and communicated the moves that are to come, including timelines and our overarching purpose, which again is to move instruction forward. So thank you to them and the parents who were there. Sticking on that theme of parent meetings, Mrs. Napolitano hosted an evening for the parents of students currently identified as gifted. I attended the meeting as well, and after her presentation, the parents and I had a robust conversation discussing regarding the needs of all of our students, including those identified as gifted. We discussed for a while what the district has been providing, what the district is providing this year, and what the district plans to provide moving forward. Mrs. Russo was in attendance and shared her perspective as a parent of an identified student. The clear focus that we tried to convey at that meeting is that as per our strategic plan and the goals of our institution, all of our students must be always engaged in rigorous instruction. We should not be waiting for pieces of a week to feel like we are meaningfully engaged. And we need to make sure that all of our students are rigorously engaged. That being said, you're going to see a presentation tonight from some of our colleagues in the audience. On the middle school program of studies, just a brief note, we continue our focus on instruction and rigorous student engagement. With this presentation, it marks the second year that we're doing this, and is again another example of our strategic plan coming to life as we focus on students and their learning. I do want to point out on Friday to the board, Ms. Villani and Mr. Odell, who is here with Mr. Portwright, joined me at the Panasonic Corporation Secaucus. We were invited and through the day challenged to explore the rigor of the instruction offered here in district based on student outcomes, as well as the access of the different populations in district to varying levels of rigor. We discussed things such as leveling and placement, which is going to impact a number of our decisions moving forward. We had to present our findings to the various to the other districts that were present, and we were able to observe their presentations. Following that, we worked with research experts from the Bank Street School in Manhattan and from the State of Delaware's Department of Education regarding administrative evaluation, which you will hear more about from Mr. Odell today. Moving forward, another exciting thing that happened today. It marked the first day of our focus training regarding current research-based literacy instruction. We've had a lot of teachers clamoring for a while that they wanted exposure to other things that were out there. It's an extremely large endeavor run by Ms. Villani and Mrs. DeBonis, who's here. We're directing and exposing our teachers to the changes in best practice around comprehensive literacy. The group included multiple teachers, as we discussed previously, from each grade level K-8. They're going to continue their training through the spring. The plan is to gradually infuse the learning practices into their classrooms, supported by research and consultant support that we'll be piloting this year. The district will then, like the math pilot, choose to obtain necessary resources to expand beyond these specific model classrooms. There's a training plan for the summer and the fall for a second tier of teachers, allowing for the majority of our teachers to support our updated curriculum with expanded teaching practices and materials beginning next September. Differentiated support from our consultant will continue for tiers 1 and 2 through the year, and as we progress, we will begin to phase in the third tier of teachers until every classroom in the district has the benefit of both a wide variety of practices and up-to-date materials. An interesting note, up-to-date Patriots Pen competition in October. Middle school social studies teachers asked students to participate in the VFW Essay Patriots Pen competition. Happy to announce that Taryn Goldberg, one of our 8th grade students, submitted an essay for competition that won at the local and district level and is now in the running at the state level. Taryn's family will receive a letter inviting him to luncheon in February, where he will be acknowledged and the state winner will be announced. So that's exciting, and we'll certainly get back to you once we hear. Instant decision day, and Mrs. DeVilliers was here, but I have hard, fast numbers, I believe now, correct me if I'm wrong, but 190 students received acceptances. Initial scholarships totaling just shy of $1,550,000. Higher now.
Ryder upped our numbers to 1.6.
$1.6 million to this point. Fantastic. And again, the total only includes, she charged me to make sure I'm clear, the initial offers made, many scholarship offers are still pending. Principal evaluation tool, just very quickly again, the board has been aware through brief. Again, while we've been pushed by the state mandate to do this, I'd like to think that it's really fostered and pushed us to have meaningful conversations at the administrative level. We've married the same philosophy with the administrators that we have with the teachers as far as what will support us in having the best possible conversations about what we do, and Mr. Odell is prepared to make a presentation on that. I'm not sure if Ms. Stanchik-Martin is making an update today about long-range facilities. I will leave her to that. Moving to communication. 2 things I would like to point out regarding communication. As an example, we had a member of the community come to a board meeting asking questions about our food service, and the business office and Mrs. Jamens has put together a response to that, which is now found on the website. And just wanted to highlight that as an example of our communication. Members of the public coming and raising an issue which is valid, so we're making sure we're communicating not just to them, but with everyone through the website. The other piece of communication, thanking the board for approving the recent LightPath contract. Are we clear?
They are still in the process of getting properly configured.
They're currently configuring our system based on the contract. I actually have in my speech here that as I am speaking, so it might in fact be true. They are increasing our level of service at no increased cost, so I want to thank you to the board. That will not only enable us to do more in the district, but save the taxpayers money. Finally, last piece that I do want to talk about is security. The events on Friday obviously have shaken everyone. received an executive order to fly the flags at half-staff tomorrow from the governor, in which he referred to the events as, quote, a senseless and devastating act of violence. I've been in touch, obviously, with the board over the weekend through email, with our administrators and faculty and staff. Thank the association for working with us through the weekend. To be clear, the district communicated directly with parents through email, and certainly with the larger community via the district website. We try to provide current, up-to-date information as frequently as possible, as well as meaningful resources to assist parents and community members in dealing with the events. I do want to reassure the community that while the events of Friday have brought the attention of the entire country to school security, this board and this administration are focused on security every day, and we have been for a year and a half. We've been engaged in a review of the district's entire security plan. At each and every administration committee, we've continued our review. We've made monthly updates on our work at the board level, including public superintendent reports such as this one. Put directly, we take security, the security of our students and our staff with the utmost seriousness. At this point, we're prepared to begin making changes to facilities, but this is the culmination of 15 months worth of work. We completely updated our plan. I thank you, Ms. Bellani, certainly the principals and administrators that were involved in that, and are prepared to submit it. It was presented to the administrative committee back in November, was initially discussed. It includes a detailed timeline chronicling the work of the past year, and more importantly, laying out our plans moving forward. Training with administrators and staff and preparation of updated supporting resources are scheduled to begin in January, and those preparations will carry on through March. During these months, revisions will continue to be made on feedback, and presentations will be made to the board. Beginning in April, we will drill with students using the revised plans and update documents only as needed. The detailed schedule is part of the plan improvement board review. The community needs to know that we've been systematically reviewing and revising our plan for the past 15 months. This is not in reaction to what happened Friday. Over the weekend, though, I spoke with both the chief of police and the mayor. Both were clear and proud of the township's preparation for incidents such as these, as well as the cooperation that we've had over the past 18 months between the town's resources and the districts. The police are in our building every year to train, and they and Mr. Nicoletta of the Office of Emergency Management are part of our planning team. They've had an active role in collaborating with us to make sure we're doing everything we possibly can, and that best practice is the only practice in district. Because of our recent progress, both the mayor and the chief of police are all in agreement that what we need to do is continue to do what we have been doing. That said, please, we need to make clear to the community, each building is required to do 2 security drills every month. There are still 2 scheduled drills for December remaining, and we want to continue them. One of our drills is scheduled for Spring Garden Elementary School and the other for the middle school. They were both actually scheduled for today. We postponed them. This is the first public announcement, and we'll be making direct contact with parents, certainly with students, tomorrow and Wednesday, so that they are completely informed that we are running a drill, and only a drill, on Thursday, so that we can minimize the stress connected with Friday, and actually keep the kids focused on practicing what we need to do in case of an emergency. I'm announcing this now again because I do want to make sure that everyone is aware that is not normally our practice, but given the circumstance, I think it was only fair and in the best interest of everyone to make sure that we're all on the same page.
And that's a scheduled drill.
That was a scheduled drill, and not a reaction. It was actually scheduled to happen today. Had Friday not occurred, we would have had those drills as planned. With all this, I do want to say that we also have taken what happened on Friday into immediate account. The administrators all participated in an early morning meeting today prior to school. The purpose of the meeting was to outline the district's philosophy for supporting our students, identify the desired procedures, expectations, and as well as resources, as well as allow for questions and conversation between the administration as a group before we disperse to our separate buildings. Our faculty and staff reported to their buildings prior to the start of school, where the same information was conveyed and questions were able to be asked and answered as large groups there. Our goal was one message across the district. I will say that feedback, and we've gotten a lot of it through the day from staff, has been positive. They felt that they were supported, and because the district's actions were clear on how to return our students to a regular schedule as a cohesive district. Everyone's responded to this incident in their own way. I've received communication over the weekend, email and from parents as well as community members. I've tried to get back to everyone in a timely manner. And I do want to say that in their comments, I've experienced the full gamut of possible reactions, with some parents sharing with their students literally everything about the incident, and other parents sharing absolutely nothing and everything in between. Because of the different responses, the fact that students of different ages and from different family experiences have reacted to this differently, as well as the fact that the recommendations from the experts over the weekend, including both the State Department as well as the Traumatic Loss Coalition, which we worked with when we suffered a loss last year, they've all been to return students as quickly as possible back to normalcy. We want to get them back into the regular routine. And for those reasons, we made decisions to keep the school day as it was, and to talk to the teachers proactively about how we can do this. Out of respect to individual parent wishes, as well as the inability not knowing how a whole group of students would react to a large conversation. What we did was we encouraged teachers to not initiate conversations regarding Friday, but also not ignore conversations. We asked the teachers to minimize conversation when questions arose, focusing on fact and the importance of our drills, and that our students take that practice seriously. We tried to return all conversations back to planned instruction as seamlessly as possible. At the same time, we talked to teachers about being vigilant for students who were struggling with the situation, different than being inquisitive. We put into place, thank you, Mr. Villa, a specific support plan to ensure that our trained counselors could be any place needed in the district. There was a communication plan between administrators to make sure that, because we did not know where resources would be needed, that administrators knew who to contact and how, so that we could get resources where they needed to be. During the day, we did ask teachers to take note of students who were inquisitive or concerned, and to specifically reach out to parents, so that the parents had contact from the school and understood if their son or daughter raised questions, so that we could work collaboratively with parents to make sure our students were supported. I communicated with the principals at the end of the day, as well as with Mrs. DeVilla, who was in every building with them. Overall, the feedback was positive. We had limited issues and a number of success stories. Overall, it was, I think, a successful return to our primary business of learning. I do want to thank the staff for all their efforts, certainly our faculty and administrators for responding as they always have, with professionalism, compassion, and focus. Mrs. Servacio, who is here, and I met this morning. She's the director of Extended Day. She put together and issued a release to all parents and students in the program. Basically put the statement, reiterate that the program continues to operate under its normal schedule, that all locations meet the New Jersey State Child Care Security regulations, and as well, they follow all district procedures, and they perform all drills with appropriate staff and emergency responders to ensure that at all points in the day, we're as prepared as we possibly can to keep students safe. With all this said, and it's a mouthful, I know that there are still concerns regarding the safety of our schools. Once school was underway, I convened a meeting with the District Emergency Planning Committee. It includes administrators from each of our 3 levels, elementary, middle, and high, teachers, Mr. Nicolette of OEM, Captain Strumlow and Detective Sergeant Watson of the Nutley Police Department, as well as our Mr. Nicolette and Mr. Viemeister of Building and Grounds and Technologies, respectively. We reviewed the events in Connecticut based on the information provided to the police department from the FBI. In comparison with our current plans, both as they stand and where we're taking them. We defined both immediate and long-term action items based on this review. However, all items, once we looked at our long-term plan, have already been incorporated into our current action plan, which was reassuring. I do want to state again that we do have a plan encompassing both immediate and long-term items, and we will communicate these items as we take each step along the way, both to the board and publicly. That said, I've gotten a ton of feedback from parents, and I encourage them and community members, as well as students at the upper levels, to communicate with me regarding concerns, questions, and certainly suggestions. We've said in our strategic plan that we value communicators, and we mean what we say. Finally said, though, another piece of our strategic plan developed by that large committee earlier this year is that we value safe, inspirational communities. And I want to thank everyone for their cooperation, because I truly believe that as a staff and as a community today, we absolutely have as well.
Thank you, Mr. Lesnick, and thank you and your staff for doing an excellent job through this difficult weekend and day, this first day. And, safety is a primary concern. Thank you. Mrs. Yeamans, Board Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. President.
For the past several months, you've heard the board speak about refinancing the 2003 and 2005 bonds. We've been working very closely with the district's financial advisor and underwriter to complete this sale. And although we've come close a few times, at the last minute the market conditions have changed, and we could no longer realize the required 3% savings. Well, our patience has paid off. Market conditions showed signs of improvement earlier this month, and upon the advice of our professional team, the sale finally took place on December 13th. Our patience paid off so well that we realized a savings of 6.92%. So what exactly does that mean to the taxpayers of Nutley? Well, the debt service portion of the tax levy will now be reduced by $1,045,000 over the remaining bond payments through 2030, at which time the bonds will be fully paid. The district is very pleased to be able to provide this type of tax relief to the taxpayers of Nutley as we continue to move forward in offering quality education to each and every student. This evening, the June 30th, 2012 financial report was presented by the district's auditing firm, Lurch, Vinci & Higgins. The report highlighted the district's financial strength and overall financial operations. More importantly, no material weaknesses were found. The recommendations and corrective action plans that are included in the audit synopsis packet have continued to drop in number over the past 3 years. But this can only be achieved when you have a team of individuals who are working together with the same purpose and diligence. I would like to personally express my thanks to each member of the business office, without whom this would not be accomplished, and to every administrator, secretary, and staff member for adhering to the processes and requirements that we need to do on a daily basis. While sometimes we seem a little picky, everybody's actions always impact the audit results, and the impact that we saw tonight was a very positive one. As to those recommendations, there were 4, one of which has already been corrected, and the remaining will be corrected over the course of the school year. The 4th one was noted in the audit last year and is listed as a repeat recommendation, and it involved the $40,000 grant that the district was originally awarded from the county to pay for the lift at Spring Garden School. This grant was funded with community block development grant funds that the county receives from HUD. So as I began researching this grant earlier this year to find out exactly where the $40,000 was, it took several months and a lot of phone calls to various people in the county office till I was finally sent a copy of an audit that HUD conducted on the county's grant operations. The audit found that the project did not qualify for funding through the community block grant. While this matter took a long time to finally get resolved, we now know what the outcome is and that all the proper accounting entries need to be made this year to remove the receivable from the district's financial records. The auditor also spoke about the reserve fund balance, also known as surplus, of $1.6 million that was reflected in the district's financial statements. This surplus is a result of a conscious effort last year to carefully monitor all spending and to ensure that what is being requested is what we actually need, not just what is wanted. Several of the out-of-district tuition students were also brought back into district last year, which resulted in a significant savings. The district is required to utilize these funds in planning the 2013-14 budget. And since this is not a recurring revenue stream, it is important that we allocate the funds to one-time expenditures, as Mr. Vinci also spoke of in his report this evening. Our goal is to target instructional needs that the district has not been able to do for the past several years, such as textbook series and technology needs, and increasing the capital reserve account while considering a maintenance reserve to plan for future projects and building needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Yang. We now have 2 presentations, the program of studies for the middle school. Mrs. Dewan.
Good evening. Tonight we're going to talk to you about the middle school program of studies. As you remember, last year we created this document to help students navigate their way through the middle school. This year, for this presentation this evening, we're just going to highlight for you the changes from last year's program to this year's program. We're going to speak to you this evening about general updates, including readiness assessments, the elective selection process and honor roll, and then some of our coordinators will also speak to department-specific changes to the middle school program of studies. By creating this document, we hope that it helps to answer two questions. Why do we need a program of studies at the middle school? And also, how does this program of studies help students, staff, parents, and the community understand our course offerings and our academic procedures at the middle school? We hope that this document will help students navigate through the middle school. We also hope that it will help to bring together the students from the 5 elementary schools into one program, and it should be used as a tool to assist with scheduling decisions. Just some of the general updates to the program of studies. As we've been working on both the high school and the middle school program of studies pretty much simultaneously, we're working hard to make sure that the language matches and is very similar from the high school program to the middle school program to help build continuity from grades 7 through 12. In this program of studies, there are some minor edits to course descriptions. We've included some additional forms with processes and procedures to help the process at the middle school for various components such as scheduling. And in the last middle school program of studies, there were disciplinary procedures. Those have been removed from the program of studies because this is an academic document. Those disciplinary procedures are still in the student handbook. The first component that we wanted to talk to you about tonight is the readiness assessments. If you remember, last year we developed what we called vector assessments for students going from 6th grade into 7th. All students had the opportunity to take those assessments to see about placement in their schedule for once they were into the middle school program. We changed the name only from vector assessments to readiness assessments. We will continue to give these assessments in the 4 core areas, adding this year for students going from 7th grade into 8th grade. Last year we did just 6th to 7th. Now this year we'll be doing 6th graders to 7th grade and 7th graders into 8th grade to reassess their readiness for various courses. We will use the readiness assessments along with data from common assessments and also teacher input to help place students in various courses throughout the middle school program. Just a quick reminder, we've been talking a lot about common assessments, and I just want to identify the difference between the readiness assessments and the common assessments. We've built common assessments into our curriculum, so in our core courses and all of our departments, we're giving common assessments, in most cases, at least twice a year. The readiness assessments will be assessments that will assess the student's overall knowledge in a content area and will be given to all students towards the end of the school year. So we will still be giving both of those assessments. Next, I'd like to introduce Mr. Courtwright to talk about elective offerings at the middle school.
Thank you, Ms. Fleming. The elective offerings that we have at the middle school will be similar in terms of the classes that are going to be offered to our students. Mr. Matera will talk a little bit about the world languages. What we want to do is provide some flexibility in scheduling and flexibility and opportunity and choice for the students. Currently, when the students make a decision moving from 6th grade to 7th grade, they kind of get locked into a course and they would follow suit as an 8th grader. What we want to do is allow access to electives regardless of student grade level. So as an 8th grader, that student may make a change in their overall course, where they want to gain exposure to a different foreign language, for example. So as 8th graders, we want to be able to provide them with that opportunity. So there may be some elective courses that could have potentially 7th and 8th graders in there together. We do have some of those courses in our current math program as well. I see it as a great opportunity for those students to have some flexibility to make a change and gain, again, as I said, exposure to something else. As far as the process for going through it, very much similar than it was in the past. We will be involving the students as well as parents in the process. Ms. Villani talked about the core subjects, the academics, through the readiness assessments. The electives will be chosen based on a menu that they get to pick from. As I said, the menu will expand as they get to 8th grade, which would include some of the 7th grade classes that they may not have taken as 7th graders. We also did work on kind of streamlining the document so there's one form to make it a little bit easier and user-friendly for both the students and the parents, and as guidance works for them to go through the process.
Thank you. Mrs. DeVillio is going to speak to the honor roll.
Last year, we made changes to the honor roll requirements at the high school. We included all courses for the first time at the high school, where in the past it was all subjects minus phys ed. So we added phys ed, so this year is the first year of high school, all courses are included. Currently in the middle school, only the 4 core are counted for honor roll: English, history, math, and science. Phys ed and health, electives, and world languages were never counted in the honor roll requirements for the middle school. And in order to validate the importance of all subject areas, and also to better align the middle school philosophy and procedures with the high school, we made this change for this year. So next year, in 13-14, both middle school and high school will have the same requirements, which for honor roll would be a B- or higher in all subject areas, and for high honor roll, an A- or higher in all subject areas.
Thank you. Next, we're going to talk about content-specific changes to the middle school program of studies. I'd just like to highlight that all of the coordinators work collaboratively with their departments. This evening, we're only going to highlight two different departments, world languages and science, but they did all work together. They worked with their teachers, and every department did have at least some edits to course descriptions. First, I'd like to introduce Mr. Banya to talk about the science department.
Thank you. This year we piloted physics in 8th grade for high-level math students that had algebra background, and it was very successful. All indicators are pointing to students being engaged and learning a lot. We're waiting to give them the same midterm as 11th grade students will take in the high school. So as the math progresses and we get fundamentals of algebra coming online, we're looking to expand that course to include maybe 3 sections for next year. So as that expands, we're probably going to see a decrease or have a pullout from the 8th grade vector class. So we're looking to eliminate vector 8th grade and move those students into into physics class during 8th grade. So we're looking at 3 to 4 sections of that. There are 2 slides or one. Which is a STEM course, I'm sorry. So the physical science, one of the things we're moving to in science, next generation science standards, engineering being a big part or a big component of science class. Physics class does have an engineering component to it. Kids are making catapults, they're measuring vectors, they're using their algebra to solve problems. So it's very consistent with the way we're going in next generation science standards. In 7th grade, we're looking to pilot a Project Lead the Way course. Project Lead the Way is a nationwide attempt to integrate a STEM component into many sciences. A lot of schools do it as a tech part. We're bringing it in as a science course. We're going to pilot it with 2 sections, maybe 50 students. And this type of model, students integrate the science content into problem-based inquiry science, where their final assessment is usually building a project or using the skills they learn from the content to solve a major problem. So we're looking to integrate that in as well. It requires some teacher training, some supplies, but it has 3 different components. One, for example, might be robotics and automation. We're going to incorporate the science component into robotics and automation. At the end, we should see a final result of kids going through a problem, which is kind of the next generation of science standards. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Materia, will speak to world languages.
Good evening. Currently at the middle school, we offer Italian, Spanish, and Latin. 7th graders take level 1A, and 8th graders take level 1B. Basically what that is, it's a 1-year course that spans 2 full years of middle school. What we want to do in the World Language Department in Nutley is we want to take advantage of the best practice that states that younger students retain more language features and learn language more efficiently. So the first proposed change for next year, the only proposed change for the 13-14 school year, will be to offer a full level 1, a full traditional level 1 course to all 7th graders that will be enrolled in a world language in the 3 languages that I just mentioned, Italian, Spanish, and Latin. That will also afford the opportunity for 8th graders that are currently not enrolled in a language to take a language in their last year of middle school. What that will do is it will also give those students the ability to be at the same level of proficiency as their other 8th grade counterparts. So once they get to the high school, they'll be able to take that same level course. The second part of this change will take place actually in the 14-15 school year, which will replace the Level 1B course, which is the other half of the Level 1 course that our 8th graders take currently in middle school. That will be replaced by a traditional Level 2 course. For next year, 8th graders that are taking, 7th graders taking 1A will still take Level 1B, and then the next set of 8th graders in the 14-15 school year will take Level 2. The great thing about that change is that students demonstrating higher levels of proficiency at the end of their 8th grade year enrolled in Level 2 will have the opportunity to take a Level 3 course as freshmen.
Thank you. We hope that by updating this document, we will continue to bring consistency to our processes and procedures. We want to continue to communicate information about course offerings and academic procedures, and we want this to still be used as a source of information for students and parents. The document, along with the PowerPoint, will be available on the district website. If there are questions or comments, please ask that you email the email address on the slide, and we'll get back to you. I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank the coordinators. And I know I did this after last month's presentation of the high school program of studies, but they've really done a fantastic job, and the building administrators working on these documents. It does take a huge effort and a lot of time among everything else that they're trying to get done. So I just want to thank all of you for your hard work on these. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to jump in really quick, Mr. Banyan, sorry. Can you hear me? Sure. I had the opportunity to observe Mr. Kastner in his class, and in our conversations, he was mentioning, because he teaches the equivalent course at the high school as he does at the 8th grade. And he was mentioning that the 8th graders are actually moving at a faster pace. Had we not introduced this course, where would those 8th graders be currently?
It'd be probably in vector science, 8th grade.
And as far as our curriculum, comparatively, where would we be? Same place, behind, ahead?
Well, now we're incorporating math skills in, so this application class is, again, STEM in nature, where they're designing different things. And it's almost, you can treat it as another math class, because they're applying the math they learned. So it's really progressive. It follows our physics first idea. Many schools do. Actually, many schools do it in 9th grade. We're implementing 8th grade. So hopefully, as we move forward, AP Physics is turning into a 2-year program in 2 years. So these students that take physics in 8th grade can enter AP Physics 1 as juniors. And they have an opportunity to take AP Physics 2. If they didn't take 8th grade physics, then they would never get to AP Physics 2.
Again, not to single out Mr. Banyan, because it's happening in all of our departments, but I just happen to have the opportunity to hear Mr. Kastner. Same point, we've accelerated now the learning potential for these 8th graders, the same way actually we're talking about doing that for 7th and 8th graders in world language. In essence, doing almost 4 times as much as we would have done. But so now introducing the 7th grade class, can you speak to what that will do moving forward?
Well, it's a whole line of thinking, and we're kind of being proactive to new standards coming online probably within 2 to 3 years. There's a huge engineering component, so we're bringing this in, piloting it next year, really starting to get a thought process going in how students think, how they try something, revise that, try again, really a scientific method at its finest, and then hopefully expanding that pilot group to all 7th grade, so every student has the opportunity to think like this, to process like this, to be exposed to this kind of science.
I wanted to point out to the board and certainly the public and the parents, thank Ms. Falani and the administrators, but also highlight the fact of this example that the teachers are really taking ownership of this. And through this process, which didn't exist before, we're accelerating learning going on across the district. It's not just for one group of kids. By combining STEM, bringing math into science and back and forth, you're seeing more efficient use of our time, and we're challenging kids in ways that we would not have before. The people sitting in front of you as well as the teachers, because the teachers are jumping in of their own volition and really taking on, and they're finding exciting things can happen in class, but we're pushing kids faster, and I would think based on the response of the students more appropriately, because they're having fun, they're finding success, and they're going to be much more prepared for next year than we would have been had we not made these changes. So I just want to highlight that all the work that these people do, the building administrators, the coordinators for sure, Ms. Falani, Ms. Davilia, it's not just about process and paper, but it's really truly moving the district forward. So thank you.
Sounds like all good news.
Mr. President, just a question. Again, I thank you you very much, and I appreciate the hard work you're doing. Just have two questions. When you're talking about the menu that the seventh graders will have to pick from, will that menu, and I was talking to Rob about it, will that be on the website so the parents can take a look at that menu at home?
It'll be part of the program of studies. All that information will be made available. Yep, part of the program.
And the other question I had was, we talked about the languages in the middle school, and I talked to Russ about it. How are we doing with the languages in the grammar schools? I mean, I appreciate what you're doing in the middle school. Where do we stand with Rosetta Stone in second grade? I'm exaggerating, but I know where most of our Rosetta Stones are. We can't find them.
I have not met Mrs. Rosetta Stone yet.
No.
I did speak to the academic committee with regard to my plan for the elementary
I
language
apologize.
program.
I'm not putting you on the spot. Russ and I have talked about this in the past,
Right.
and I appreciate getting to the 7th and 8th grade level, but, we need to be concerned about that grammar school languages.
And we are concerned, and we will be addressing it. Right now, we have, our program at the middle school is a lot more robust when compared to the elementary school, and we can make more lasting changes at the middle school. There is a plan in place that I've discussed with the academic committee as well as Mr. Lazovic and Ms. Villani that will also affect the elementary school that will be shared when the time is appropriate. Because that's where the success of the whole program will start, where our younger students will be exposed to more language.
Thank you.
Mr. Odell.
Thank you. The evaluation of teachers and administrators has been part of education, for a long, long time. But what gives impetus to tonight's presentation are these requirements of the state of New Jersey. You can see that by December 31st of this year, all districts must adopt educator evaluation rubrics that include state-approved teaching and, to our point, principal practice evaluation instruments. The state gave us an extremely narrow window of about a month to conduct this whole process. And I really do want to thank all my colleagues, administrators, Mr. Lazovic and Ms. Villani for their assistance in getting this process done so quickly and so efficiently. By February 2013, we must, as a district, report to the New Jersey Department of Ed. Okay, sorry about that. On our progress towards meeting this requirement. And to get everybody started, the Department of Education posted a list of 9 approved principal evaluation instruments that we had to choose from. Our goal is we wanted to choose one, we thought about just what it is we're after. Most importantly, to foster the necessary conversations that guide our practice. And these conversations are ongoing. We have admin team meetings about every other week, and of course, throughout every day. To choose a framework that we could adapt to our needs, our goals, and our vision as a district. Everything has to be consistent. And the framework was by far the most important part. We're not looking to buy the whole package, as many of these vendors wanted. We wanted a framework that really met our needs. To support professional development, which has to be ongoing. And to choose an instrument that was compatible with our existing data system, which, as you know, is Performance Matters. The process. Committee of 4 administrators, of which I was a part, along with Mr. Banya, Mr. Williams, and Mrs. Rustel. Met with Mr. Lazovic and Ms. Villani. And we reviewed the 9 approved instruments from the state, concentrating on the framework that was included in each system. That list was reduced down to 4. One we did subsequently drop when it was found that it required its own software system and was not compatible with Performance Matters. The frameworks for the remaining 3 were then distributed to all the district administrators for their input. They had the documents to review. We set up a Google Doc using the technology to keep that conversation going around our days. And this discussion reduced it down to 2, one known as McCrell and one known as MPPR. You see it stands for Multidimensional Principal Performance Rubric. Very few of these have very short names. So that's we might actually give them nicknames at one point. Final discussion and decision occurred during our administrative team meeting last Thursday on the 13th, and that led to our selection of McCrell. All right. Now the rationale for it They have to be research-based, and this certainly is. It works off balanced leadership framework with links to 2008 NISLIC standards. It's the Interstate School Leader Licensure Consortium standards, which are the basis for many of the instruments. What we like about it is very explicit in its emphasis on professional growth and learning. That is consistent with what we ask of our teachers also, that the emphasis is on growth and learning. It's a very focused framework. Some of these were very, very long. This is organized into 3 domains and 21 components, making it, we think, focused and very usable. Regarding a very important part, and a part that was a concern to many of the administrators, instruction. It points directly to the research-based practices of a district. It points directly to them, whereas many of the others try to insert some intermediary language that approximated the instructional framework. This one says, go back to whatever your research-based framework is, in our case, Danielson, and allows the administrator to keep the focus right there. So that was very important. Certainly, we think it will foster the conversations regarding the practice that we seek, and it is designed to address appropriate change when it occurs. This district has been seeing some changes, and of all the frameworks, this was perhaps the most explicit and also trying to, talk about how an administrator would manage that. Give you a sense of the domains and components. The first one, principal leadership responsibilities associated with managing change. You see that the things that the administrator would be evaluated upon categories: developing, proficient, accomplished, distinguished. Not demonstrated usually is not an issue. Your ability to act as a change agent, your flexibility, which administrators must have, ideas and beliefs, intellectual stimulation, making sure faculty is aware of the most current theories and practice, knowledge of curriculum, instruction, assessment, monitoring and evaluating, and optimizing, so you inspire, lead new challenges and innovations. The second domain, focus of leadership. You see it again, the aspects of it. Contingent rewards, discipline, certainly maintaining order and security is important. Focus, clear goals, and then keeping those goals in the forefront of a school's attention, working with the strategic plan would work with that. Certainly our involvement in curriculum, instruction, and assessment, and that we're directly involved in helping teachers design curricular activities and address assessment and instructional issues. Maintaining order, outreach to the community and all of the stakeholders, and certainly managing our resources, our budgeting process, and everything else. And the final one, our work with creating a purposeful community. They have headings such as affirmation, communication, working on the culture of your community and the cooperation, the input that we're involving teachers in the design and implementation of important decisions, relationships with staff, our situational awareness, so that we are certainly flexible in how we adapt to situations, and our visibility, getting into classrooms, working with teachers and students. So, these are the components of the evaluation system, and this is a screenshot of what one of the frameworks would have looked like. So, as it would work, the administrator, again, focusing on the administrator's growth, would start with looking whether they hit this category, and then working through the check boxes from developing to proficient to accomplish, giving a sense of what that growth would look like in each category. And we are pleased with the choice. It came from a consensus of the administrators, and again, if there are any questions, I'll certainly be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
Sorry, Mr. Rodell, to clarify, because I want the board to understand the process as well as the community. When we initially, as a group of 6, so before administration responded, when we looked at the 9, we came up with a very different group initially. What changed? What do we have to have? What conversation do we have to have to lead us eventually to this decision?
Well, the conversation went back and forth a great deal, very much so. The conversation is very much focused on the framework and the language, and what kind of conversation that really would be. Would it focus on our goals? Would it focus on our instruction? Would it adapted itself to our situation, our data system. You know, that it was basically flexible to our needs. We were not looking for a prepackaged one. And many of these, as we talk to them, would start to say to us, well, we are going to insist that you buy all of this, or that you use this software system, or that our training will take your leadership in this direction. And we wanted this very much adapted to the goals of the Nutley School District.
And because of that, I mean, our administrators looking on their own, I don't know if we were clear about that, and we ended up talking about Marshall and some of the others. When we were at Panasonic talking to a number of the other districts, they ended up with frameworks that we discarded. And when talking to them, they ended up with those for the same reasons that we initially, I think, rested upon them, because we were looking at, well, if we have to buy a whole package system, which one is least detrimental to where we want to go, as opposed to which framework is most powerful for helping us get where we want to go. They didn't have those conversations, and they ended up with a lot of the frameworks that we ended up discarding before we got this small group. As Bob said, once we really became focused on finding the framework that was best for us and not the package that was least damaging. I mean, we've had multiple conversations, Mr. O'Dell has had even more than I, with the sales reps on all of these, the representatives, and I think we've frustrated them a little bit because we're coming at them with something new. They built these packages based on the requirements of the state, and we're finding a different way to meet those requirements, but because of that, we don't want their prepackaged good, we want the framework, and because of that, I think we end up with a much different result. People were willing to actually put aside the other things that may be worrisome, trusting that we could move past those as a district, and look at which framework was best. And we had those conversations on Friday and talked through the language of the framework. A lot of the district admitted basically that, well, I mean, when you look at just the framework, yes, we didn't pick the best one. And, you know, as a group, the administrators were committed to having it. And Thursday was a somewhat difficult conversation.
Yes, it was. And but I have to say, from talking to other districts, which, you know, I do in my role going to my supervisors association, we probably had more of a conversation than any district I know of. You know, many, why did you take this one? Well, it came with the teacher's one, so we just bought the package. Our conversation was, I would say, rigorous and extensive, and at times a little heated.
And I think one of the good parts is we, with Friday's incident, haven't been able to follow up so much. But all the administrators, one of the things they did once we came to a consensus is we started asking them to share with us any of the challenges that the framework would pose, or any of the deficits we think the framework may have before we even get into it, so that we can actually start planning on how to ameliorate those before we start using it. So we're not only picking the best framework, but we're hopefully going to make the best possible use of it. So again, thank you, Mr. O'Dell, for running and researching it, and certainly for all the administrators for being part of the conversation, which is our goal.
Thank you very much. We'll start and go around the table.
Okay, sure.
Easy start.
All right, the Long Range Facility Planning Committee met on Monday, December 3rd. In attendance, beside myself was Ms. Flynn, Mr. Cookta, Mr. Scalera, Ms. Shamans, Mr. Lazovic, and also we invited Mr. Courtwright as a representative of the Configuration Strategic Action Committee. We interviewed Ross Haber from Ross Haber Associates in regard to the RFQ that was issued for enrollment projections, redistricting analysis, facility planning, and capacity analysis. Since 1986, Mr. Haber has worked with over 100 school districts providing services in the area of demographics, redistricting, transportation, and information technology. The committee recommends Mr. Haber, based on his strength of his resume, his work with districts across the state, ranging in size from Newark and Jersey City to Millburn and West Orange, his experience as an educator and planner, and the strength of his references. And he is on the agenda tonight underneath financial resolution number 10.
Thank you.
The academic committee met on December 3rd, and a quick overview regarding what we heard this evening in terms of the comprehensive report provided by Superintendent Lazovic, as well as some of the presentations. So it was really a dry run for the administrators to give us an overview of the program of studies which we saw this evening. And as you can see, it's an extremely comprehensive document, along with not being a static document. It's dynamic, and that's one thing I wanted to impress upon the public and my fellow board members, that in the application of the program of studies, it's not something that we're going to try to address in the 11th hour. These are ongoing changes that will be taking place as we move along in terms of addressing our students' needs. So I think that's an important fact that needs to be addressed. In addition, I was very, I think it's enlightening to hear Mr. Banney address our group in terms of the inroads that we're making with some of the STEM ideas in terms of science, technology, and mathematics. And it's certainly a breath of fresh air taking this student-centered approach and then modeling that with these project-led initiatives by our students. And I think that is where we're headed for the 21st century. And it's right along the lines of what we propose in our strategic planning document. So again, that's something that I'm very impressed by in terms of the initiative that we are taking, not just with science, but integrating that with the whole math sequence as well. The principal evaluation model, thank you, Mr. Odell, for doing an extensive and comprehensive presentation and enlightening us in terms of where we're headed in that direction. And again, it falls in line with what we're trying to do with our teachers. And I know there's going to be a lot of pressure on Ms. Polani and Mr. Lasvik to get those evaluations out. But again, it's good information that we're going to fold into improving student instruction. Language arts consulting, is that on the agenda tonight? I missed that. Okay, so that's going to be on there as well. Our comprehensive literacy coach for our teachers, so that will hopefully be approved this evening. We had the math pilot program. I know Trustee Flynn as well as Trustee Kaczynski attended that meeting this past week. I think we're going to have another meeting this coming January for more vendors regarding the pilot math programs that we hope to introduce. And last but not least, we talked about our academic calendar. I want to say 2013, 2014, as well as 2014 to 2015. We'll see that on our agenda come March for approval. Some minor tweaks to that calendar, that being the professional day, which usually occurs in February. I want to say it was moved to Election Day in November, and this provides the opportunity to save an instructional day in February while eliminating the need for additional safety during Election Day. I also met this past Thursday with Mrs. LaGuardia, Mr. Materia. This was for our curriculum subcommittee for the strategic planning effort. And again, just a quick update regarding some of the progress that has been made in world languages as well as, I want to say, our music program. We're going to see some significant changes regarding this comprehensive curriculum review process. That's going to trickle down to science and social studies, I want to say, come early next year. But speaking to Mr. Kaczynski's concern earlier regarding how we want to ratchet this down in terms of our approach with world languages, and that's something certainly that Mr. Materia has wrapped his head around. I know with this best practices model in Princeton, New Jersey, where we have Mandarin Chinese being taught at the elementary school level, and at some point we hope to get that here in Nutley. But again, it's a program that has been historically decimated regarding resources. We need to target the same gifted and talented. So I think it's a commitment where it's incumbent upon us as board members to hopefully advocate for these programs for our children, because it is so important and vital as we move into the 21st century model of education. So that's my report.
Thank you, John. Mr. Kaczynski.
Yes, Mr. President. First of all, I really want to thank excuse me, our academic committee for an outstanding job. I know we're all here for our children, and we all serve on different committees to expedite our final decisions. But in my mind, the academic committee does an outstanding job. I want to thank you guys, because this is the results of what's coming of all of our hard work. My administration committee is not that exciting. The fact is, we had a difficult time this past month getting our committee together because of our busy schedules, our busy lifestyles. So you see what was discussed, but in reality, this was discussed between Russ Lasvik and myself. And then the reports were, I contacted Mr. Scalera and I contacted Brenda Sherman to bring them up to date on what was discussed at the meeting with Russ and myself. And you'll see we discussed the first reading of the policies that you see before you. We discussed the calendar, the public service electric and gas, which you'll see on the agenda. The substitute rate, we talked about our facility planning meeting that we had with Mr. Scarpelli. The athletic update with Mr. Pyro, who also was not able to make our meeting, so that was rather upsetting, but moving forward, we'll make sure that we all are in attendance at our next administration meeting. We did talk about security with Mr. Lasvik, touched on before. We talked about some personnel issues which we discussed in closed session. and they're on the agenda tonight. Other than that, I did discuss with the board members the brief discussion that we had with the county and Mr. Scarpelli on some work we might be doing on Radcliffe School. It's ongoing. We haven't made any decisions yet. The board will be completely involved when we get to that next step, but we're not there yet.
The Finance Committee met on December 11th. Most of the items that we discussed at that meeting have actually been covered already this evening. I just mentioned what they were. We had the audit report. We talked about the bond refinancing. We talked about the Radcliffe School. We talked about the food service student account, which is being published. The grant, Radcliffe, and the budget development for 2013-2014, and some of the priorities that go into that budget. In addition to those things, which I think we already covered this evening, we went over the agenda items for tonight, including legal church. That's maybe that's it.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to be reporting on our community action team meeting, part of strategic planning. We met last week, December 12th. We reviewed, we actually had a survey. We put in the hockey monkey, that's my son. Survey monkey, apologize for that. Hockey monkeys are by the equipment, so I said the same thing to I apologize. Reviewed Survey Monkey for the teachers to respond. We got 59 responses from teachers. A lot of them are very good. They were engaged in discussion about the difference between community service and curriculum-based service learning projects. We identified some of the stronger examples of service learning projects that we do have that already exist that we've been able to roll over into that type of model for us here. The community action team members presented examples of starting learning projects guides, toolkits, reviewed some rubrics. Actually, we found through research that New Jersey had this program from 1996 to 2010. So we have the 2010 model that stopped the program on the state DOT, Department of Education DOT site in 2010. Maryland still has it. We have a rubrics we received from them. There were some other resources that we did find. 8 districts throughout the state that were listed in this program that said they had the program. They've all been called. None of them at this time have called us back. So we don't know if it still exists. There were actually 8 municipalities using this plan. Our next meeting is January 31st at Radcliffe School at 3:45. We'll be reading through the highlights and the components of the national plan, New Jersey, and the Maryland models. And we will be actually beginning to write our district toolkit guide in accordance with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to report on the meeting. We had this 2 weeks ago, I think it was, about the character component of our strategic plan. This was our first meeting. Our strategic plan goal is by June 2017. Students in Nutley Public Schools will assume responsibility for the integrity of the Nutley student population, demonstrating character by their actions in school and the community, and through their own participation, monitoring of and presentation of codes of honor. So that's what started the discussion. We also discussed the first year goal is 2013, and everyone kind of agreed that the character committee will have conducted a program review, issued appropriate recommendations, and completed a draft ethics curriculum. Mr. Odell is one of the leaders of this action committee, as well as Mr. Jones and Mr. Ackerman. Mr. Odell had a slideshow that rivaled a little bit of Trustee Reed's from last time, but we're not going to show it. But everyone seems to be on board and excited about doing the first year, doing the program review. It seems that Nutley has already been involved in character development and kind of infusing it into curriculum, but there's going to be a closer eye towards it, doing a full review of the curriculum and come with a draft ethics curriculum. Mr. Odell has set up a Google Doc program where committee members can go on there and sign on and provide their comments, and we plan to meet shortly again to move forward. The other thing is, I wanted to talk about, just bring to the board, because I've talked to some of you about the math pilot, the presentations presented last week about the new textbooks, and new, I guess, new.
Is this new business?
Well, it's like kind of like a committee
Oh, the
committee
okay.
report.
It's a committee? Okay.
It's part of it,
Yeah, and I just want to go over, I was blown away, and I think you would all be, and eventually, I guess we'll be presented to the full board, about what is out there for our kids. And I'm very excited that this board has, we've built a budget that is focused on providing these type of services to our kids. We're also laser focused on making sure our kids have the best possible equipment and curriculum, and now we gotta give them the materials. And these materials out there are amazing. iPads, and there's gonna be, for a math, they can go online and get tutoring services provided some online. I mean, I think it's amazing what's out there. And when you all see it, you're gonna be blown away. And I'm looking forward to, and it's also very interesting to see how differently as it relates to math, how it can be taught and the reactions of everyone. So I'm looking, I don't know if everyone can go, but I think it's really interesting to see how it's changed in terms of how they provide instruction. I think it's an eye-opener for a lot of people in there, and it's really going to move the district forward. And I think this board deserves a lot of credit for, and the superintendent and the administration for demanding this, but this board has been really focused on it and demanding it. And I think with our budget, in terms of what we presented today, the finance committee, we've been focused on doing better budgeting, making better budgeting decisions, and we're putting our kids in a place where they can get these great services. So it's going to be exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda, for your identification.
That was my iPhone, a little small, but sorry. I was unable to attend the communications meeting because there was a last minute time change, but I was fully briefed. What they were able to accomplish was they did review the year one goal, and there were some minor modifications. The year one goal, and it is, I see it's already been posted, by June 2013, the Communications Committee will utilize surveys and focus group discussions, identify the variety of communication needs across the district, and develop a seamless plan that integrates existing technologies to meet these needs. This work will culminate with a presentation to the full Board of Education. Having read that, what I report to you is they have added some community members. There were 7 committee members that were added that I will give the names to so they can be up, you can update the webpage. And they did actually create a survey of about 10 questions. The survey, although was completed and can cover a lot of areas, they're going to hold off on actually presenting and see if they can perhaps coordinate with some of the other groups to make it more comprehensive. So some of the areas that this survey touched upon are also addressed in some of our other strategic goals of competency, configuration, and curriculum. So they're not going to release the survey yet, but they have already come up with a very detailed survey to present. And the only other item that I wanted to mention along the lines of communication is, since you've announced that we're going to have drills, I believe at the last meeting there was a concern about the timing of the drills and if they are going to be done during lunch to make it at the end of the lunch period. I one of the parents, so they're all work that in the communication committee report. And there was no date planned for the next meeting next month. Although this will probably be my last report on the communications committee meeting as a board member, I will be staying on the communications strategic plan committee going forward, but as a community member, I say.
Thank you. And with that regard, and Mr. Krasinski will take your place on the communication.
Oh, that reminds me. One other thing, speaking of replacing, Radcliffe School Rep, going forward, whoever does take over the representation of Radcliffe School, that lives in school, I was in Georgia, you could please keep them involved in the plans for the front building as well.
Hearing of citizens. We now come to the portion of our meeting where we allow members of the public to address the board. In this section, we allow questions or comments on only the resolutions addressed in tonight's agenda. Our board regulations allow 20 minutes for these communications. Each person shall be limited to 3 minutes, and We ask you to try to stay within this requirement. Speakers may speak more than once, only after all others wishing to speak on a topic have been heard. All statements will be directed to me as chairperson, and no one may address the board members individually. Please be reminded that if your statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, irrelevant, or redundant, your participation may be terminated. Please remember always to state your name and address each and every time you address the board. The first person wishing to speak, please step forward. Seeing no one, I'll close this portion of the meeting. Dr. Reed, will you move academic resolutions 1 through 5?
Yes, Mr. President, I make a motion to move academic resolutions 1 through 5 as stated.
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none, call roll, please.
Mrs. Stejcik?
Yes.
Mrs. Flynn? Yes. Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Dr. Reed?
Yes.
Mrs. Russo?
Yes on 1 through 4, no on 5.
Mrs. Scalera?
Yes.
Ms. Sherman?
Yes.
Mrs. Pizzano?
Yes.
Mr. Cookman?
Yes. Mr. Kaczynski, will you move administration resolutions 1 through 3?
Yes, Mr. President, I move administration resolutions 1 through 3 as so prepared.
Second.
Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Stejcik Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Flynn? Yes. Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Dr. Reed?
Yes.
Mrs. Russo?
Yes.
Mrs. Scalera?
Yes.
Ms. Sherman?
Yes.
Mrs. Pizzano?
Yes.
Mr. Cookman?
Yes. Mr. Sposato, will you move finance resolutions 1 through 22?
Yes, I move finance resolutions 1 through 22 as written.
Second.
Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Stejcik Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Flynn? Yes. Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Dr. Reed?
Yes.
Mrs. Russo?
Yes.
Mr. Scalera?
Yes.
Ms. Sherman?
Yes.
Mrs. Pizzano?
Yes.
Mr. Cookman?
Yes. Before going on to the personnel, I'd just like to recognize and thank the donations, which is in resolution number 20. The Radcliffe PTO, the matching donation for Life, donation from Rotary Riley, and from the Nutley Business People for Advancement of Technology. So thank them. Mr. Kaczynski, move personnel resolutions 1 and 2.
Yes, Mr. President, I move resolutions, personnel resolutions 1 and 2.
Second.
Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Stejcik Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Flynn? Yes. Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Dr. Reed?
Yes.
Mrs. Russo?
Yes.
Mr. Scalera?
Yes.
Ms. Sherman?
Yes.
Mrs. Pizzano?
Yes.
Mr. Cookman?
Yes. Hearing of the citizens. In this section, we allow questions or comments on all school-related matters. Our regulations allow 30 minutes for these communications. Again, each person shall be limited to 3 minutes. We ask you to try to stay within this requirement. As stated previously, all statements will be directed to me as chairperson, and no one may address board members individually. Please be reminded that if your statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, irrelevant, or redundant, your participation may be terminated. Please remember to always state your name and address each and every time you address the board. First person wishing to speak, please step forward. Seeing none, close this section of the meeting. Old business.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I have one reference to the committees we're working on, the
Yes.
old business. In reference to the committees that we've been working, the reaction to the strategic plan committee action team, and several ones we're doing, I'd like to ask, because we've all come up with June deadlines for the agendas to be done, that immediately when those are done, we have a board retreat or workshop on them. I think we should have a discussion on each of those policies and not do it just as a presentation to us on it. There are different things happening in different committees, one of mine, that I would like to make sure we bring out and discuss before we adopt the permanent policies. So I'd like to make a recommendation to the board.
Thank you. Sounds reasonable. Any other old business? New business?
Yes. New business, and I do have a couple things, and I want to write, I put something out on this, not a John, but last weekend, 2 weekends ago actually, there was the Nutley Christmas extravaganza put on by Mike and Mr. Kandari. And I just want to, I did a little write-up on this, so I just have to read that. I said, music is alive in Nutley High School. The Nutley Music Extravaganza in Nutley High School was another wonderful Kandari production, I called it. Tonight in Nutley, you do not have to go far to hear holiday music of the past to the classics of the 60s and the present day. There were appearances by the famous Rockettes, the Andrews Sisters, the Jersey Boys, all created by our students in Nutley High School. Also appearing was a group called D&M Headline. It was headlined by a 2010 graduate of Nutley High School, majoring in music in Philadelphia, and has produced his first CD. His name is Daniel Fornasa. And to hear him sing on stage, and I was sitting in the audience and talking, going, is he one of our students? Where is he from? And to learn at the end that actually he graduated and has now produced his first CD and is a product of Mr. Kandari. That is success to our music program. So I said to everybody, if you're really looking for some holiday music, it's something to do, I'd recommend you go and see that, and you won't be disappointed. Then this past Thursday, I actually went to the holiday celebration at the high school, which is everything included from our I have to say, if you haven't heard the Jazz Lab play, Zach Kalari and his mother's usually at some of our meetings, he did the arrangement for the music that they performed. So it wasn't just an arrangement. Most of you saw all the arrangements as you're going down the list that were done. And I'm looking, this one said arranged by Zach Kalari. He actually did the arrangement. It was phenomenal. The things went wrong that night from Mr. Ayala to the concert, to the choirs, to the instrumentals, to the strings, to the choir, to the choralettes. If you haven't been to the programs, I was in the music program when I was in high school. It was nothing like this. We've come a long way, and we're doing a great job. And I just wanted to let everybody know how well our music program is doing in the school system. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to thank and recognize Brenda Sherman, who, although her stay on the board filling in for a vacancy created by Mr. Rogers, becoming commissioner, short, but she pursued this very diligently. She gave her all, she was 100%, and asked her questions, and was truly engaged as a board member, and I'd like to recognize her and thank her for that.
I'm not going to say much, mostly because I often say I like my actions to speak louder than my words. I've learned a lot. I've picked up an iPad and an iPhone, which I never had before, just so that I can keep pace with the rest of the board members and our administration. But it has been a lovely experience. I've enjoyed working with everyone. I truly mean that. Administrators, board members, parents, who I now have a lot of friends on my phone. And I look forward to hopefully continue serving on the Communications Committee, and perhaps in a more meaningful way in the future. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. There's nothing else. At this time, we'll be adjourning to closed session again, after which we'll reconvene and take no further action and adjourn. Whereas the Board of Education will be discussing matters exempt from public discussion pursuant to NJSA 10:4-12. Now therefore it be resolved that the Board of Education recess to close executive session at this time to discuss student matters. Be it further resolved that results of the discussion in public by inclusion on the agenda of subsequent meeting of the Board of Education or when the reasons for discussing such matters in closed session no longer exist. Second. In favor? Aye.